Hey, I'm talking today with Kristi Belcamino. Kristi, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing, Jim?
Pretty good, pretty good. We've both got dog situations going on here, so hopefully we don't have a round chorus of barking at any point during this interview, but we'll make do. Um,
Okay.
Here's a little about Kristi. USA Today bestselling author and Agatha, Anthony, Barry, and Macavity Award finalist Kristi Belcamino writes dark mysteries about fierce women seeking justice. Sign up for her newsletter and receive free books at subscribepage.com/Kristi. She's a crime fiction writer, cops beat reporter, and Italian mama who also bakes a tasty biscotti. In her former life as an award-winning crime reporter at newspapers in California, she flew over Big Sur in an F-18 jet with the Blue Angels, raced a Dodge Viper at Laguna Seca, and attended barbecues at the morgue. So, Kristi, first I got to tell you, I don't care about the jet or the Dodge Viper, but you got to tell me about barbecues at the morgue.
Oh yeah, sure. So we at our county coroner's office, it was run by sheriff's deputies, and so they were my sources,
Okay.
and they would do 24-hour shifts. And so if we were both working on a Saturday, I would call them up and say, "You got any bodies? What's going on?" And they'd say, "But we're grilling today. So why don't you come over and have lunch with us?" I'm like, "All right." So the first time I did, you go through the offices, you go in through the front door through the regular offices, and then you go through the autopsy room, past the freezer, and out into the big bay, the big garage dock, I don't know what you call it, where they pull in the giant vans with the bodies. So it's this massive space, and they'd have the garage door open, and they'd have the grill. And so we'd load up our plates with buns and tomatoes and all that, and then we'd go out through the autopsy room into the garage and get our burgers. And then we go back through the autopsy room into the office to eat. And I can't tell you how many times I thought, I'm going to die. There is like an airborne infectious disease in the air landing on my burger. And I'm going to die of some stupid random thing because I was eating burgers at the morgue. I wasn't worried, like the burgers were burgers, obviously. But we had really, me and a couple other reporters there who covered the cops beat had really great sources at the coroner's office. And so we would go to their parties. We would do anything they said. So yeah, I always would, if they invited me, I was there.
Yeah, that's super gross. So, I got to ask you this. So, I've never been in a morgue and I've never been party to an autopsy, but in the TV shows, there's always the cliche about the guy working in the morgue who's got the scalpel in one hand and a hoagie in the other. Is there any truth to that they're always like eating while they're working around dead bodies?
So the guys, the sheriff's deputies, they only collected the bodies. They didn't actually, the forensic pathologist came in to do the autopsies. And so I only went to one. I know, what a wimp, right? Only went to one autopsy in my career. I had a friend who went to like 10, and she would wear her high heels there. And anyway, so I went to one, and it was very comical. Like, I don't understand why the forensic pathologist had a great sense of humor. Like, he dropped the guy's liver on his shoe, and everyone thought that was hysterical. And I'm thinking, this is really weird, really
Mm.
weird. But so yeah, there's this weird gallows humor, I guess, with cops and with forensic pathologists. So I didn't see him eating anything, but he didn't have a mask on. I didn't have a mask on. I didn't feel like it was, we were super worried about germs then. So
Wow. Okay.
maybe that was in the old days.
So, tell us a little bit about you and your writing.
Okay, so as I've hinted at, and as you mentioned, I was a newspaper reporter who covered the crime beat for most of my career before I started writing fiction. I never thought that I could write fiction, so I turned to journalism. And then I left journalism to have kids, and I moved to Minnesota from the Bay Area. I moved to Minnesota. I had two little girls, and I realized that I was a little bit of a messed up mom. I always had to hear them if they were playing in our fenced backyard. I'd have to call their names and make sure they were there. And we were in a really safe neighborhood. So I realized that there was something wrong with the way I was parenting, and I didn't want to damage my children too badly. But I also knew that there were people in the world that did terrible things to kids. So my form of therapy over the years is to journal and to write about things that are upsetting. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to write about this. And I had carted this big box of journals that had my notes from interviewing this guy. And I thought, well, I'll write a nonfiction book about him and I'll get it all out of my head, and then I won't have to think about him anymore. So I started writing a nonfiction book, and it ended up morphing into a fiction book. The character was cooler than I was. She lived in the nice part of town I could never afford to live in. But I basically told the story about this reporter interviewing the serial killer. And it worked. I mean, it definitely worked. I think I'm a fairly normal mom now. But I realized that I could write fiction. I could write a book. I finished it. And then I received really good feedback. And I eventually got an agent and a 4-book deal with HarperCollins. And that just started my whole career as a crime writer.
Nice. So we're actually talking today. We're going to finally get around to the topic. We're actually talking today about your favorite thriller, and the book that you said you want to talk about is Orphan X by Gregg Hurwitz, which I've read and I thought was excellent. Yeah. So
should I hold up the cover?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. Yeah, I've read that one. I very much enjoyed it. So can you give us like a little spoiler-free synopsis, or what can you tell us about the book too that would like back cover description?
The back cover description. So the main character is Evan Smoke, and he is a former assassin for like a black ops government program that would, he basically would kill people for the United States government. And then he went rogue. And so now he is not only in hiding from the government, who is not happy that he went rogue, but also he has devoted his life to basically killing people to help, of course. Coffee
right.
The dog. Okay. He has basically devoted his life to helping people who can't help themselves. He's out there helping people who are desperate, mostly involving killing, their enemies. Is that a good spoiler? You read it. Is that a good spoiler-free synopsis, would you say? A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I never was a book reviewer, so
that's fine.
That was my take on it.
Yeah. Would you say that Orphan X is that it's more of a plot-based book, or is it more focused on the character?
Okay, so I tend to think that it's both, honestly. I tend to think that and this is one reason I think I like it so much, because I think it is a really good mix of a plot-based thriller and a character-based thriller. And I don't say that about every thriller that I read. And that's definitely why that I picked this book, that I love it so much, is I think it does a good job of both.
Mm-hmm. So what is it, I mean, beside having a super cool name like Evan Smoke, what is it about Evan that's so intriguing?
Oh, I do love sort of the plot-based, sort of one-dimensional thriller characters. Like I love Jason Bourne. I love Jack Reacher. I love the character in Atomic Blonde. I love these strong thriller characters, but they don't have a lot of depth. And I feel like Gregg Hurwitz does a really good job of getting us inside Evan Smoke's head and really caring about him more than a lot of protagonists in thrillers, I believe.
From what I remember from the book, and it's been a few years since I had the audiobook version read by Scott Brick, and it's been a few years, but I seem to remember that there was a big subplot in the book that had a lot to do with him interacting with various people who lived in his apartment complex, and him like getting dragged into some kind of like HOA kind of thing, and that was the subplot of the book, and that's what I remember making it him seem interesting, was the way that he was, had this really dark past, and he was a very brutal killer, but here he was having to interact with this woman and her small child and sit in these like HOA kind of meetings, and it was just a very interesting change of pace.
Yes, no, I think that's exactly it. I think that we do have this ruthless assassin, and yet we see him being this meek man in the elevator with this 80-year-old woman in a Chanel suit who's scolding him, So, I mean, it's a really good interplay of characters, like to show that side of him. So, yeah, I think you nailed it exactly.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the villain in the book without spoiling anything?
No, but no, I don't want to give any spoilers. Sorry.
That's okay.
I do think we talk about antagonists and protagonists, and I do think that the antagonist is equally as important as the protagonist. Yeah.
Would you describe Orphan X as a page turner, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah. And this goes back to why I think, I think a lot of people look at a page turner as plot driven, like, okay, what's going to happen next? But the reason that we care what's going to happen next to Evan Smoke is because we care about him. I'm not as interested in the plot or the big stakes here. I'm interested in him, and I mean, what's he gonna do next? How is he gonna handle this? So yeah, in that case, it's a page turner because I want to spend more time with him. I want to continue to be in his world and in his life. So yes, in that sense, yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. So is this book is a series, right?
It is a series. Yeah, I think it's like 3 or 4 books now.
Are all the books about Evan Smoke? Have you read the other ones?
Yes, I have read them all. Yes, they're all. He's the protagonist in all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Have you read other stuff by Gregg Hurwitz?
I did. I read The Crime Writer, which is the only other one I've read by him, which was amazing. That might have been my introduction to him. But yeah, that was a really good book too. I read it a while ago, so I couldn't tell you what it's about, but it was definitely one of the ones I liked.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I've read anything else. I read this one because I think a few years ago I really fell in love with Scott Brick, the audiobook narrator.
Oh, okay.
Really his voice. I don't have any personal feelings toward the man. But I think I just went I went through Audible and just like sorted Audible by his recordings, and he's recorded hundreds of books.
Oh,
and
wow.
I just downloaded a bunch of stuff where he narrated, and so that introduced me to lots of books. And he's doing the new Jack Reacher books now. I guess
he is. Okay.
The old narrator either passed away or retired, and so Scott Brick is going to be the new voice of Reacher.
Nice. I could see. Yeah, I definitely could see the connection. Cool. Well, I'll have to check him out.
Anyway, audiobooks aside, so what is it about Orphan X that makes it stand above any other thriller that you might choose to call your favorite thriller?
I think we touched on this just a little bit, but what I love about Orphan X and about the main character is that his character, you see him wanting so badly to live a normal life. Like you said, he's interacting with these people in his building. He's sort of falling for this woman and her son, and he sees himself as part of their life, but he can't. I mean, he can never open himself up to somebody because what he does is he kills people, and it's not going to be. And I think she's maybe a district attorney or something. So there's no way that it would work, And I love that about him because you see him always on the outside looking in, and you can just see this yearning about him. He just wants these normal things, but that was never an option for him. And it's really bittersweet because he wants a normal life and he's never, ever going to have that. We know this. Like, we just know that that's going to be something that's never fulfilled for him. And that just makes it stand above other thrillers to me. I really feel for the guy.
Yeah, tragic irony is always compelling, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Right.
So here's a general question about thrillers. What makes a great thriller great? What is the quality that makes a great thriller so compelling? Aside from tragic irony.
I am a terrible book critic. So this is my criteria. And go ahead and laugh at it if you will. Any book, thriller or whatever, if it moves me emotionally, if it makes me cry, it's a great book. It's a great thriller. If it doesn't make me cry, then it was enjoyable. It was a good escape. It was enjoyable. I love it. I liked spending my time doing that. But if the book makes me cry, then it's a great thriller. It's a great novel. So I call that the cry factor. And if a reader tells me they've cried, I'm just like, yes, got it. The cry factor.
Nice.
So that's my criteria. Really scientific, I know. But...
Yeah, no. I like to make my readers cry, not by connecting with them emotionally, but by getting them to be interested in a character and then ruthlessly killing that character off. That's how I want to elicit tears in my readers.
That sounds very familiar. Game of Thrones much?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm quite to George R.R. Martin level, but
there you go. Yeah.
I don't think I've written as many characters as he's killed off.
Oh. But you've killed off as many?
I don't know. Maybe I don't think I can say that. So, Kristi, what book of yours do you want to talk to us about today?
Well, I think the one that I'm obsessing with right now. Sorry, my dogs. The one
That's
I'm
okay.
obsessing with right now is one that comes out this month, and I think talking about Orphan X is perfect because really this book was inspired by Orphan X. I love, like I said, Evan Smoke. I love Jack Reacher, Jason Bourne, James Bond, and they all inspired me to create a female rogue vigilante, Robin Hood assassin type character. And her name's Eva Santella, and she's Italian, and she had to become a mob boss at 17 when her father was imprisoned, and she's tried to escape that life. She's come to America to try to escape that life, but it just keeps catching up to her. And so she also is trying to live a normal life with this assassin background. So a little bit like Evan Smoke. But unlike Evan, she probably is going to have a better shot of living that normal life. And the book is called The Queen of Spades. It's out May 23rd. And it's called The Queen of Spades because in the Italian and Sicilian mafia, if you had a Queen of Spades card left, like on your doorstep or something, you're gonna die.
Wow, it's a cool cover. Is this the
thanks.
Is this the first book in a new series?
This is the first book in a new series. She's a spin-off character from another series I have. And I think people wanted to know more about her, and she's super fun to write. So.
I've definitely done that before, spun off new series from existing characters, because if you like this character in that book, you'll probably like them featuring their own series, and then it gives you a great chance to expand on somebody's story, expand on their backstory, where they've come from, and completely change everything. That's what I like to do. Introduce a character, give them their own series, and then completely change everything about their backstory just to make it more interesting.
I don't. You are more skilled than me. I'm not sure I can get away with that.
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying that I am getting away with it. I'm just saying that I've done it.
That you've done it. I'm not saying that I won't do that, but that's not the plan right now. We'll see.
Well, Kristi, is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything you want people out there to know?
Do you have a favorite thriller book at this moment?
Wow, nobody's asked me that. I've done like 8 or 9 of these, and nobody's asked me my favorite thriller.
Were you interviewing reporters?
No, I guess not. I guess not. My favorite thriller. Well, I have a lot. I have several that might not exactly qualify because they're a little sci-fi-ish, or like because probably Lexicon by Max Berry. I consider it a thriller, but it's it's got some kind of like fantasy sci-fi elements to it.
Cool.
Or The Drawing of the Three by Stephen King, the second book in the Dark Tower series. I mean, it's definitely it's a sci-fi western fantasy whatever the hell it is, but that book introduced me to thrillers, and I love that.
Cool.
My favorite, probably straight thriller, just like straight, no fantasy, nothing magical, nothing sci-fi, high tech, regular thrillers. Probably The Firm by John Grisham.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that book, and it like a lot of what you were talking about, what John Grisham did well is that in the first chapter he made me care about the hero.
In the first chapter. Yeah, that's great. I'm sorry, my dogs are so loud.
That's okay. He made me care about the hero, and then basically from there.
Chapter.
Yeah,
there
it's
you
like
go. Then you're in.
Yeah, I'm on board now. Like now, I just want to see what happens to him. Want to see if he gets what he wants, if he succeeds.
Sorry, they're so loud. It's just like they've never been this loud, Jim. I'm just letting you know.
Your dogs want your attention. They're desperate.
I don't know what's going on.
Amazon man outside.
No, we're trying to be quiet here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Come here, Coco. You're gonna come say hi to Jim, because then you'll be quiet. Oh. Sorry, she's a delicate little thing. There you go. Oh, poor baby. Hi. All right, there we go. If I hold her, she'll be quiet. But we're wrapping up anyway.
Yeah, we're wrapping up.
Okay.
All right, Kristi. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today about Orphan X. And
thank you for having me. This is fun.
Your book that comes out, or will have already come out by the time this airs, The Queen of Spades, a thriller, Queen of Spades, thrillers. And that will be book 1 after, I'm sure it'll be called book 1 after book 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 come out.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. Hey, thanks, Kristi.
Thank you.